Hello and welcome to the Farming Week, the podcast from Agriland that keeps you up to date with all the latest in Irish agriculture. I'm Louise Hickey and I'm joined today by editor Stella Meehan and journalist Colm. This week, farmers faced some wild winds with Storm Isha and Storm Jocelyn bringing wind warnings nationwide. Stella, the weather has thankfully died down now, but there's been some damage and the clean-up has just begun. What impacts has the storm caused?
So, Louise, we had Storm Isha and Storm Jocelyn pay us a visit over the past 7 days, and boy, did they make their presence known, certainly in the west and northwest at the very least. So Storm Isha came first, and a red weather warning was issued by Met Éireann for the west and northwest in advance. Status red means that it's the most severe and significant of all the weather warnings. So everyone was advised to batten down the hatches, secure away anything that might get blown over and cause a hazard, lock up machinery, and generally stay indoors without travelling anywhere. At one point, Ireland was even under tornado watch last Saturday night and into Sunday as the storm took hold. Initially, over 250,000 electricity customers were without power from Sunday onwards. So this affected everyone from homes to farms, milking parlours, supermarkets, you name it. There were trees blocking roads, fallen power lines and lots of debris. So at first light then on Monday morning, ESB Networks crews began assessing the damage and deploying teams to try and get the power back to customers, which happened in a bit of a trickle effect throughout the day Monday and into Tuesday. And then no sooner were we all starting to breathe a sigh of relief again once Isha had passed, that we got news that Storm Jocelyn was on its way. Again, this storm, which crossed the country on Tuesday night, brought severe damaging gusts and large coastal waves affecting homes, farms and properties, mostly in Galway, Mayo and Donegal, but it did hit other areas as well. So there were status yellow and status orange weather warnings issued for this storm event, but no red warning, thankfully, and Jocelyn seemed to pass off without causing too much further damage. But ESB Networks crews were even up until yesterday and today, Louise, trying to restore power to the last of the properties still without power as a result of the adverse weather. Now, thankfully, I only had the candles in use for a few hours and had the power back within 24 hours, but I didn't put them away just yet because with January and February in the west of Ireland, it's very unpredictable and you never know when you might need them again.
Absolutely. The ESB, they really had their work cut out for them this week. And now in the third week of January, the Department of Agriculture paid out an additional €8.18 million in farm scheme payments. Stella, what are some of these latest payments?
So scheme payments seem to be the constant topic of conversation, Louise, these days among the farming community. And rightly so. If you didn't get your wages when you usually get them and you've bills to pay, you'd be concerned and stressed as well. So this week, the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine revealed that it had paid out more than €8 million in farm scheme payments in the third week of January. So the latest payments come as the department officials are continuing to try and work through outstanding applications. The data published by the department showed that €5.62 million was paid to farmers under the Basic Income Support for Sustainability Scheme, that's BIS, and also for CRIS in the week ending January 19th. Now, DAFM said 118,000 farmers have now received payments totalling €802.2 million under these schemes. A lot of money there. The department also noted that the overall figure also includes the 2023 complementary income support for young farmers. That was 24.5 million, and the 2023 National Reserve payments of 2.8 million. So then, Louise, an additional 2.2 million was paid out under the complementary income support for young farmers, and then an extra €500,000 under the 2023 National Reserve. So some other payments which were made were €480,000 for eco scheme applicants and over €500,000 for areas of natural constraint, that's the A and C scheme, and the areas of specific restraint schemes. We can't forget TAMS either, that's the Targeted Agricultural Modernisation Schemes. The total paid out there was nearly €1.1 million. So all in all, €8.18 3.1 million was paid out for schemes by DAFM last week. And then the week before that, Louise, the department paid out 5.3 million. So they are trying to get through the backlog, but it's very welcome funds to farmers and farm families who've been putting off paying bills since last autumn because of the delays.
Thanks for that update, Stella. Now, what seems to be a recurring and sensitive topic is farmers struggling with bovine tuberculosis or TB. From December 2022 to December 2023, there were 5,015 herds restricted and 28,131 reactors. We recently visited a suckler farm in County Meath that has been struggling with TB. Stella, what's this farmer's story?
Yeah, Louise, so we can all publish all the statistics in the country about TB. Statistic after statistic. And the department can write press releases on this, that or the other about advice and what they're doing to tackle it. But nothing conveys the real impact of TB on a herd better than a farmer, him or herself. So Agriland went out to the farm of suckler farmer Joe McAvoy in Drumconrath in County Meath this month. Now, Joe is a farmer who admits he has been battling the scourge of TB in his herd for about 20 years, and it was heartbreaking to hear about the constant devastation when he gets a positive test. The first time the farm was hit was about 25 years ago, and he lost about 50 cattle that time. But he has been having reactors every year since. Joe was so honest about the plight he faces, losing cattle, having to pay more for extra meal because the herd is locked up. And despite some compensation from the Department of Agriculture, the impact is still huge for him and his livelihood. Take a listen here to what Joe had to say.
First outbreak was back to guts of 25 years ago. We were hit badly. We lost probably the guts of 50 animals in that year between cows, young stock, everything, which was a massive blow to our whole system. I was in America at the time, and the brothers just rang me to say we lost around 40 animals in the first go, and it's just destroyed the holiday in the air. Devastating news for me.
Well, that was suckler farmer Joe McAvoy speaking about dealing with TB outbreaks on his farm, along with all of the impacts for over 20 years. We wish Joe the best on getting his farm back on track, as we know the devastation that outbreaks can bring to farmers. You can find out more about that over on Agriland.ie. Now, just moving on from that, the Department of the Environment confirmed that agricultural tyres are set to be included in the Extended Producer Responsibility Scheme from next year. Stella, what exactly does this mean, and what type of responsibility does it put on farmers?
So as you mentioned, Louise, agricultural tyres are set to be included in that Extended Producer Responsibility Scheme. That's known as an EPR scheme. So it'll be included from next year. So the scheme currently covering passenger cars, 4x4s, vans and motorcycles, it finds sustainable solutions for managing waste tyres, essentially. But from January 1st next year, it'll include all categories of bus, truck, agricultural, construction and industrial waste tyres. Now, the department said the expansion of the scheme will enable the environmentally sound management of all tyre categories. So waste management regulations from 2017 place certain obligations on those who supply tyres to the Irish market. So the Department of Environment has said that tyres which are improperly managed and disposed of pose risks to public health and the environment. Now, Ireland introduced an EPR scheme for tyres around 6 years ago, and that's operated by Circol ELT. A lot of people might remember the name Repack. It used to be called Repack, but it's called Circol now. So all tyre producers and retailers are legally obliged to be members of the scheme, which is based on the producer pays principle. So the compliance scheme is funded by an environmental management cost paid by the producers to Circol ELT, who organise the collection and treatment of end-of-life tyres. So this environmental management cost then will be introduced for all tyre categories, which will regulate the recycling of all tyres to ensure they're all accounted for and managed sustainably through recycling. Along with managing and promoting the scheme, this EMC, this cost, it covers the fees and costs associated with collection, transport, recycling, and the retail handling of the tyres. Now, commenting on the extension of the tyres EPR scheme, Minister of State, who has the responsibility for communications and the circular economy, Oisin Smith, said the scheme also contributes to diversion of large amounts of waste from landfill. So that's good news for anyone who wants to ensure tyres from machinery are disposed of in a correct manner. However, organisations such as the Farm, Tractor and Machinery Trade Association, you know that as the FTMTA, has said the scheme is somewhat unworkable. Now, the FTMTA acknowledged that the overall aim of the scheme is positive, and of course, everyone wants to get away from a situation where there are tyres thrown by the side of the road or found in a bog. But Michael Farrelly, the FTMTA Executive Director, said their main issue with this is that part of the legislation will now require any producer or retailer of tyres to register and to administer the scheme between the consumer and this so-called ELT. So the FTMTA believes that there is absolutely no benefit to having agricultural machinery dealers registered as tyre retailers or distributors under the expanded scheme, because Farrelly was said their members and dealers, while they're recognised as retailers of tyres, they're retailers by accident, more or less, he's kind of saying, because they're only selling the tyre because the tyre happens to be attached to the machine, if you get me. So basically, the FTMTA is saying that there will be way more admin for the dealers and the scheme overall is just too complicated. So we will have to see, Louise, how it'll work out now when it comes in from the 1st of January.
Thanks, Stella. And now I'm joined by journalist Colm Ryan, who attended the Teagasc National Lowland Sheep Conference this week in County Roscommon. Colm, what were some of the key points highlighted at the conference?
So at the Teagasc National Lowland Conference, which was on earlier in the week in the Athlone Springs Hotel, it was opened by the Teagasc director, Frank O'Mara, who said that the conference, it was just to address what farmers can do inside their own farm gate. In other words, how farmers could change things that they were in control of, mainly nutrition. That's where the conference started out, talking about what farmers could do to improve the nutrition in their sheep flock. And so that particular presentation was given by Dr. Tim Keady of Teagasc, who was speaking about the management and the consequences of nutrition during the pregnancy of a ewe, which is very important at the moment. A lot of farms are coming up to their lambing seasons, or maybe some are in the middle of them. So the correct nutrition of a ewe will have a huge impact on the lamb mortality. So how many lambs survive past birth, the birth weight of a lamb as well, the amount of colostrum that the ewe produces, and the body condition score of the ewe during lambing. So 60% of lamb mortality occurs within 24 hours of birth, and it is important that the lamb is able to receive the colostrum that it needs during that time. So therefore, for the ewe to produce good quality colostrum, it must be given good nutrition at this time. So essential to maintaining a good ewe is to develop a nutrient plan. And so the key aspects of developing a nutrient plan are knowing your lambing date, when you expect to be lambing on your farm, so you can feed the lambs accordingly as they are pregnant. Also knowing your expected litter size of your ewe. So you'd know that by scanning your ewe, finding out if she'll be having a single, twin or a triplet. So then you can separate your ewes and feed them accordingly as to what their litter size will be. And having detailed analysis of your silage as well is important. That's what Dr. Keady said, because if you're feeding poor quality silage to your ewes, it isn't doing them any good.
And was there any advice then in relation to flock health raised at the conference?
Yeah, so at the conference, Seamus Fagan from the Department of Agriculture's Regional Veterinary Labs, he spoke at the conference. Something that came up immediately when he began to speak was his concerns over blue tongue and the impact that could have here in Ireland if it reaches Ireland. He mentioned that it is having quite a devastating impact in the Netherlands. As we know, we've been covering a lot of stories about blue tongue in the UK and the cases there. But Fagan was just saying that it is important that we educate ourselves about blue tongue, especially now, because we have a few months, maybe 3 to 5 months, he was saying, before the summer months come, when the midges are the ones that will be spreading the blue tongue virus. So he said that now is an important time to educate ourselves about being able to identify blue tongue before it could potentially arrive.
Sounds like it was a very interesting conversation around flock health in the National Sheep Conference. But this is an important time of year in many different ways for lambing season and ewes in lamb. And the thing that has come up a lot on Agriland recently is dog attacks on ewes. And, I think in terms of what farmers can do, reiterating that you're a sheep farmer yourself, Colm, and we've many other sheep farmers working in the Agriland office, and they're all worried about making sure their ewes stay healthy, they're not traumatized, they're not chased. Even the ones who don't get attacked, obviously, if there is an attack in the flock, can really have repercussions for when it comes lambing. And it's not nice to see animals traumatized. I assume, yourself, you do everything that you can in terms of protecting the ewes and looking after them, and would encourage people to make sure their dogs are on leads or under control.
Yeah, it is every sheep farmer's worst nightmare, really. If you either get a call from a friend or a neighbour or a family member to say that they've spotted a dog in the field, or else if you are out in the field yourself and that's the way you find your flock being attacked. So yeah, it is difficult for farmers to know how to deal with it. But just from the stories that we've been covering here, the one thing they all have in common is the farmers are just appealing to dog owners to just control their dogs. They're not asking dog owners to do much, only just to control their dogs. There's a farmer I spoke to a few weeks ago in the Comera Mountains in Waterford, which is a very popular area for walkers, for dog walkers as well. He doesn't want to stop people from walking in the area. He just wants them to control their dogs, especially up there in a mountain area where he didn't know the full cost of the dog attack because of how vast the area was. He just knew there was a few sheep that had been attacked. There was a few killed, but just because of the size of the area, he is still counting the cost of the attack. And that's the same for all other farmers there, only counting the cost of dog attacks on their sheep long after the attack happens, because it does have a significant impact on lambing and how many lambs you'll be producing during that season. Through aborted lambs, like the effect that it has on a ewe, it is huge, and it's something that we're covering quite a lot lately.
Now, I'm afraid that's all we have time for on this week's episode of The Farming Week. Please don't forget to rate, review and follow The Farming Week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from. We'd really love if you could spare some time to give us 5 stars or share it to anyone who you think might be interested. All the best for the week ahead from myself, Stella and Colm.